Hey, church family. Just have a quick devotional I want to share with you, and I hope it's an encouragement for you in this time. Just a verse in Acts chapter 8, it's verses 1 through 3, takes place right after the stoning of Stephen. And if you know the history there, it's pretty much right after the establishment of the church. It already has its first martyr. But this is Acts chapter 8, verses 1 through 3. It says, "And Saul approved of his execution. And there arose on that day a great persecution against the church in Jerusalem. And they were all scattered throughout the regions of Judea and Samaria, except the apostles. Devout men buried Stephen and made great lamentations over him. But Saul was ravaging the church. And entering house after house, he dragged off men and women and committed them to prison." A couple observations from this text. It's interesting to think about how pretty much right after the establishment of the church, it very quickly found itself in a really difficult situation with persecution. I certainly wouldn't say that the situation we're in right now is a situation of persecution, but it's very true that we very quickly found ourselves in a difficult time as a church and not being able to meet together. But I think this text can actually be encouraging to us as we just see it and step back and think about the perspective it gives us as the church over the 2,000-year history. There's been so many times in 2,000 years where the circumstances that the church finds itself in has changed, and a lot of those times those circumstances have been difficult. But what has never changed about the church is that it has been given a mission from God, and that God has given us the ability to fulfill that mission. So I think that's really encouraging for us to be remembering in this time that there's no doubt that God has a purpose for his church in this time. And it's my prayer that we're stepping up and living out that purpose when things are looking different for us as a church. But continue reading the second part of that first verse. It says, "And they were all scattered throughout the regions of Judea and Samaria, except the apostles." I've always read this text and seeing that the Christians were scattered from the persecution as really a fail from the early church. They were, devoted to God, and then persecution came, and then they all ran away except for the apostles. But there's some different theories out there to why that is. But what's really cool in studying this text and what I've seen is the words that were used here when it says that the Christians were scattered. It's purposefully the same language that's used to what you do to a seed when you scatter it so that it can grow. And it's really cool to see what happens through this persecution and how God actually uses it in this time in history. That because the Christians were persecuted, they were scattered, they went to different parts of the world, and in turn that actually spread the gospel throughout the world, and those seeds were able to grow in different parts of God's creation. I think that's pretty easily applicable to our time, even though this is a difficult time that we find ourselves in, and I'm sure many of us are feeling really scattered right now and not being able to come together. But even in difficult times that seem so negative and down, God can absolutely and will absolutely use those difficult times to make something beautiful from it. If we're willing to step up and play our role in the body of Christ, God can use these difficult times and has a plan for these difficult times to further his kingdom work here on earth. It's so great to see that in this text. And I know that God continues to do that in our world today too. So I just hope those couple observations are an encouragement to you in this time, that even though things are looking different, that we still have a mission that we're called to. We still have an ability to fulfill that mission, no matter what circumstances might look like. So I'm praying for you guys, and I love you, and hopefully we'll be seeing each other face to face soon. Bye.